I'm Amber Wilson, 35, and I never thought my own family would endanger my daughter. When I found Haley, 16, abandoned at our resort in a country with do not travel warnings without her passport, I felt my world collapse. That was hilarious. My nephew Kyle laughed during our call. You should have seen her face, his sister Jenna added, giggling. My parents and brothers stood by silently, complicit. I didn't scream or yell. Instead, I got calculating. The next morning, they had no idea what was coming. Before I dive into this nightmare, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. If you've ever had to stand up against family who crossed the line, trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. Growing up, I always believed family meant protection and support. That belief shattered 5 years ago when my husband Daniel announced he was leaving us for his 23-year-old assistant. The divorce was messy, leaving me to raise our daughter Haley, who was only 11 at the time, on my own. I rebuilt our lives piece by piece. I landed a promotion at the marketing firm where I worked, bought a modest house in a good school district, and made sure Haley had stability despite her father's sporadic involvement. My family's response to our situation set the tone for everything that followed. My brother Thomas immediately took Daniel's side, suggesting I must have driven him away somehow. His wife Sandra spread thinly veiled gossip at family gatherings about how career women often neglect their marriages. Their kids, Kyle and Jenna, picked up on this attitude, treating Haley with a mixture of pity and condescension that grew more pronounced as the years passed. My parents, Harold and Patricia, never directly criticized me, but their actions spoke volumes. They showered Thomas's family with attention and gifts while offering me helpful advice about how to win back a man. When I decided to sell my wedding ring to help pay for Haley's braces, my mother called it burning bridges. When Thomas received a minor promotion, they threw him a party. When I was made department head, they sent a text message. Despite this dynamic, I maintained contact for Haley's sake. She deserved to know her extended family, and I refused to be the one who severed those bonds. I scheduled regular visits, sent birthday cards, and swallowed my pride at family gatherings. Haley, sweet and eager to please, tried desperately to win her grandparents' approval and forge connections with her cousins, who were close to her age, Kyle, 18, and Jenna, 17. The trip that would change everything began with a group text from my mother. Your father and I are celebrating our 40th anniversary this summer. We've decided to take the whole family on a 2-week vacation to celebrate. No excuses. We want everyone there. The destination made my stomach drop. A coastal resort in a country known for its beautiful beaches, but also for its dangerous regions, with explicit do not travel warnings from the State Department. I called my mother immediately. Mom, have you researched this place? Parts of that country are extremely dangerous. Don't be dramatic, Amber, she sighed. We're staying at a 5-star resort in the safe zone. Thomas and Sandra already put down deposits for their family. I have work commitments, and Haley has her summer photography program. So your career is more important than your father's anniversary, and Haley can take pictures anywhere. Is this family, Amber? Or would you rather Haley miss out on making memories with her grandparents while we were still healthy enough to travel? The guilt trip worked as intended. When I told Haley about the trip, her eyes lit up. A real vacation with everyone? Please, Mom. I've never even been out of the country before. I couldn't bear to disappoint her, not when family experiences meant so much to her. I requested time off work, paid the cancellation fee for her photography program, and began researching safety precautions for the region. What I found wasn't reassuring. While the resort area was considered relatively safe, travel advisories warned about kidnappings, armed robberies, and cartel activity in surrounding areas. I compiled a safety folder with emergency contacts, maps of safe zones, and printed copies of all our documents. During our pre-trip family video call, I tried raising my concerns. "I've been reading about safety issues." Thomas cut me off with a laugh. Classic Amber, always looking for problems. "We're not going to the dangerous areas. We're going to a luxury resort. Stop being such a helicopter parent." "Thomas is right," my father added. "You'll ruin Haley's experience if you fill her head with fear." Sandra smiled condescendingly. "Our kids are almost adults, and they're not worried. Haley will be fine following their lead." That comment sent alarm bells ringing, but I was already committed. The week before departure, I took extra precautions. I registered with the embassy's Smart Traveler program, purchased additional travel insurance, and had serious talks with Haley about safety protocols. "Mom, you're being super intense about this," Haley complained as I quizzed her on emergency procedures. "Humor me, please. Promise you'll keep your passport in the hotel safe, but always carry a photocopy. And don't go anywhere without telling me, even with your cousins. Kyle and Jenna will think I am a baby if I have to ask permission for everything," she protested. "Better safe than sorry," I insisted, not realizing how prophetic those words would become. The night before our departure, I noticed Haley texting excitedly with Jenna, the first real connection they'd shown. When I asked about it, Haley beamed. "Jenna says this trip is going to change everything. She and Kyle are going to show me how to actually have fun for once." A chill ran down my spine, but I pushed it aside. Surely my family wouldn't deliberately put Haley in danger. I was about to discover how wrong I was. Our arrival at the resort seemed to validate my parents' choice. Pristine beaches stretched along turquoise waters. Palm trees swayed in the gentle breeze, and the resort itself was a marvel of luxury, with multiple pools, restaurants, and attentive staff who greeted us with cool towels and fruit-infused water. "See, Amber, you worried for nothing," my mother said, accepting a welcome cocktail. "This place is perfectly safe. From the resort's manicured grounds, you'd never know that just 20 miles inland, the State Department had issued its strongest warning against travel." I kept this thought to myself as we checked into our rooms, my parents in a deluxe suite, Thomas and his family in a 2-bedroom villa, while Haley and I shared a standard room with ocean views. Haley's excitement was palpable as she unpacked her new swimsuit and beach clothes. "Can we explore now?" Kyle said there's an awesome infinity pool with a swim-up bar. "Let's get settled first and remember what we discussed about safety." She rolled her eyes. "Mom, we're inside a gated resort with security everywhere. Nothing bad is going to happen here." The first red flag appeared that afternoon at the main pool. I was applying sunscreen when I overheard Kyle telling Haley, "The drinking age here is basically whatever you look like. The bartenders don't care." "Haley isn't drinking," I interjected firmly. Kyle smirked. "And Amber's in full control freak mode, I see." Sandra, lounging nearby, laughed. "Kids will be kids, Amber. A little vacation freedom never hurt anyone." "She's 16, I reminded her. "When I was 16, I was sneaking out to concerts," Sandra replied. "Lighten up." Thomas nodded in agreement. "You were going to make Haley the odd one out if you keep her on such a tight leash." I noticed Haley's face fall, the familiar look of someone desperate to belong. Later that evening, I found her trying on Jenna's more revealing clothes. "Jenna says my swimsuit looks like something a 12-year-old would wear," she explained, tugging at a bikini 2 sizes too small. "Your swimsuit is perfect for you," I said. "You don't need to dress like Jenna to have fun." "Kyle and Jenna know how to enjoy life," she countered. "They say I'm too sheltered, and that's why I don't have many friends back home." The comment stung because it contained a kernel of truth. Between work and managing our household alone, I hadn't been able to facilitate as many social opportunities for Haley as I would have liked. Seeing her cousin's cruel assessment of her social life made me feel like I defailed her somehow. Our second day featured a guided tour of the resort's private ecological reserve. The guide emphasized staying on marked paths due to local wildlife, a rule Kyle and Jenna immediately flouted by venturing toward a restricted area. "Kids, please stay with the group," the guide called out. "We're just taking photos." Kyle shouted back, pulling Haley along with them. I started to follow when my father caught my arm. "Let her go, Amber. You can't protect her from everything." "It's not about protection, Dad. It's about basic safety and respect for rules." "Thomas and Sandra aren't chasing after their kids," he pointed out, as if this were the measuring stick of good parenting. When the three teenagers returned, Haley was wide-eyed with excitement. "We saw a really cool cave entrance. Kyle says we should come back tonight and explore it." "Absolutely not," I said firmly. "That area is off limits for good reason, and Amber's afraid of everything," Kyle announced to the group. "No wonder Haley doesn't know how to have adventures," Thomas laughed. "My sister was born 40 years old, always worried about consequences." I bit my tongue, not wanting to create a scene, but I pulled Haley aside later to explain the very real dangers of unauthorized exploration. She listened reluctantly, her eyes constantly drifting to where her cousins were planning their next activity without her. The pattern continued through the next few days. Kyle and Jenna would suggest increasingly risky activities, from wandering into staff-only areas to attempting to leave the resort premises to visit local shops without an adult. Each time I intervened, I was painted as overprotective, while Thomas and Sandra were praised for giving their children independence. The building tension came to a head at dinner on our fourth night. My father raised his glass in a toast. "Tomorrow's excursion to the coastal ruins will be the highlight of our trip, a full day of history and culture." My stomach tightened. "Are these the ruins that require traveling through the yellow zone regions?" I asked, referring to the State Department's color-coded warning system. Thomas groaned. "Here we go again." "It's a standard tourist route," my mother assured me. "The tour company has perfect safety records. The brochure says it is a 90-minute drive each way through areas that aren't part of the resort safety zone," I pointed out. "I've read reports of tourist vehicles being stopped in that region." "We've already paid for everyone's tickets," my father said with finality. "It would be a shame for Haley to miss it because you're nervous." I looked at Haley's pleading face and felt trapped. If we go, we need to take precautions. Everyone should have copies of their passports, emergency contacts, and we should stay together at all times. Kyle snickered. "Aunt Amber probably wants us all wearing matching t-shirts and holding hands. I think it's sensible," I replied evenly. "Especially for the kids to have proper identification with them at all times." Sandra waved dismissively. "The tour guide will handle all that. The kids don't need to carry important documents that could get lost." I stood my ground. "Haley will have her passport copy and emergency information." "That's non-negotiable." After dinner, I spent an hour preparing our documents and reviewing the excursion details. The tour would depart at 8 a.m. with breakfast provided en route. We would visit ancient coastal ruins, have lunch at a tourist restaurant, and return by early evening. I packed a small bag with water bottles, snacks, sunscreen, and first aid supplies. "Mom, nobody else is doing all this prep," Haley complained as I labeled her water bottle. "Better safe than sorry," I repeated, not realizing this would be the last normal evening of our vacation. As we went to bed, Haley received a text that made her smile. When I asked about it, she simply said, "Jenna says tomorrow is going to be epic." If only I had known what they were planning, I would have booked us on the first flight home that night. The morning of the excursion arrived with perfect weather, clear skies, a gentle breeze, and comfortable temperatures. Haley was unusually animated at breakfast, giggling over texts with Jenna while I double-checked our day packs. "Did you put your passport copy in your secure pocket like we discussed?" I asked. Yes, Mom, she sighed, patting her shorts. Can I go meet Jenna at the lobby? Everyone's heading down already. We'll go together once I finish my coffee, I said, noting it was still only 7:30. With 30 minutes before the scheduled departure, my phone buzzed with an email notification from my biggest client back home. Urgent. Campaign approval needed immediately. I hesitated, then opened it. The client was threatening to pull the campaign ID spent months developing unless I approved a minor revision immediately. I need to handle this quickly, I told Haley. Go down to the lobby and tell everyone I'll be there in 5 minutes. Do not leave without me. Okay, she agreed, already heading for the door. The quick email response spiraled into a 15-minute crisis management session as the client demanded a video call. By the time I wrapped it up, it was 7:50. I grabbed our bags and rushed to the lobby, already rehearsing my apology for delaying the group. But the lobby was empty of my family members. The tour desk attendant smiled at me. Are you looking for the Coastal Ruins tour? They left about 10 minutes ago. That's impossible, I said. My family wouldn't leave without me. My daughter is with them. The attendant checked her list. Wilson party. 8 passengers departed at 7:40. They said everyone was accounted for. My heart began to race. My daughter and I are part of that group. We weren't accounted for. She looked confused. Sir Wilson assured me everyone was present. Sir Wilson, my father. I pulled out my phone to call Haley, but there was no answer. I tried my parents, Thomas, Sandra, all went straight to voicemail. The spotty cell service in the region made communication unreliable at best. Did they leave any message for Amber Wilson? I asked desperately. The attendant checked and handed me a note. Took off early, didn't want to wait. See you there. Dad. They had deliberately left without us, or so I thought. It wasn't until I received a garbled text from Haley that true panic set in. Mom, where are you? They left me. Those 3 words hit me like physical blows. They left me. I called her immediately, but the call failed to connect. I sent a text. Where are you? Stay put. Her response came through in fragments. Hotel, wouldn't let me. No passport. Kyle took. Ice filled my veins as I pieced together what must have happened. I began searching the hotel frantically, showing Haley's photo to staff members. A security guard finally recognized her. The young lady who tried to join the tour without documentation. I believe she went back toward the guest rooms. I found her sitting on the floor in a service corridor near the rear hotel entrance. Knees pulled to her chest, face streaked with tears. When she saw me, she completely broke down. They left me, Mom. She sobbed as I held her. They really left me? Once I got her calm enough to speak, the full story emerged, each detail more horrifying than the last. After leaving our room, Haley had met her cousins in the lobby. Kyle immediately suggested they go wait by the tour bus instead. He said they should put their passports in the room safe because the tour guide handles all documentation. Jenna had already put hers away, Haley explained, wiping her eyes. So I did too. They made it seem like carrying it was weird, and that you were being paranoid. The 3 teenagers went to the tour bus loading area. Kyle suddenly claimed he had forgotten something, and he and Jenna ran back toward the hotel, telling Haley to tell the adults they'd be right back. Moments later, Haley saw the entire family, my parents, Thomas, Sandra, Kyle, and Jenna, boarding the bus. I tried to get on, she said, but the tour guide stopped me, asking for ID or my tour confirmation. When I said my mom had it, he wouldn't let me board without proof I was part of the group. Haley called out to her grandparents, who were already seated. Grandma looked at me through the window, but turned away when I waved. Uncle Thomas said something to the driver, and they just left. She tried running after the bus, calling out, only to be stopped by security. When she managed to call Kyle's phone, he answered, laughing. He said it was a lesson in independence. That maybe now I wouldn't be such a baby about everything. I could hear Jenna laughing in the background, telling him to put it on speaker so she could talk too. What did she say? I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. She said, "How does it feel to be on your own for once, princess? Maybe now you'll learn the world doesn't revolve around you and Aunt Amber." Haley's voice broke. Then Uncle Thomas took the phone and said they'd see me when they got back, that I'd be perfectly fine at the resort, and this would be good for me. Did Grandma or Grandpa say anything? I asked, already knowing the answer. Grandpa said this would build character, that you and I both needed to toughen up. I held my daughter as she cried, my mind racing through scenarios. We were in a foreign country with dangerous regions. My 16-year-old daughter had been deliberately abandoned without identification as some kind of twisted lesson, and my entire family was complicit. I helped Haley back to our room, got her cleaned up, and tried calling the family again. This time, Thomas answered. "Finally decided to join us?" he asked casually. "You left my 16-year-old daughter alone, without identification, in a foreign country?" I said, my voice deadly calm. "Don't be so dramatic. She's at a luxury resort, not on the street. She needs to learn some independence." I heard Kyle's voice in the background laughing. That was hilarious. She kept running after the bus. Jenna chimed in. "You should have seen her face when they wouldn't let her on." "Put Mom and Dad on the phone," I demanded. My father's voice came on the line. "Amber, don't overreact. The girl is perfectly safe at the resort. Consider it a life lesson." "A life lesson?" I repeated incredulously. "She's a minor in a country with travel warnings, deliberately left without identification. Do you have any idea how dangerous that is?" "You filled her head with unnecessary fears," my mother chimed in. "This will help her see the world isn't as scary as you make it out to be." I took a deep breath. Screaming wouldn't help Haley now. "We'll discuss this when you return," I said flatly and ended the call. Turning to Haley, who had been listening to the conversation, I said, "I'm so sorry they did this to you. This was not your fault, and it was not okay. What are we going to do?" she asked in a small voice. "First, we're going to make sure we're safe," I told her, already forming a plan. "And then we're going to make sure this never happens again." Little did my family know, they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. While Haley showered, trying to wash away the morning's trauma, I sat on the edge of the bed, making lists. One part of me wanted to book immediate flights home, to put as much distance between us and my family as possible. Another part, the strategist who declimbed the corporate ladder despite countless obstacles, knew that hasty reactions rarely yield optimal results. I called the front desk and spoke with the hotel manager, explaining the situation in precise, factual terms. His reaction told me everything I needed to know about how serious the abandonment was. "This is completely unacceptable, Miss Wilson," he said, clearly alarmed. "Leaving a minor without documentation is not only against our policies, but potentially illegal. I will arrange for additional security personnel to be aware of your situation and have someone escort you if you need to move around the resort." Next, I contacted the U.S. Embassy, where an official documented the incident and offered to send a consular officer to the resort if necessary. "What your family did could be considered child endangerment," the official informed me. "I strongly recommend filing a formal report, which would be forwarded to authorities both here and in the United States." "I'd like to do that," I confirmed, my resolve hardening. When Haley emerged from the bathroom, looking younger and more vulnerable than I'd seen her in years, we sat together on the balcony overlooking the ocean. "Are we going home?" she asked quietly. "Not yet," I replied. "We're going to stay right here, where it's safe. I'm not risking traveling through dangerous regions without the protection of a tour group. They'll be back tonight, and we'll deal with this then." She nodded, then asked the question that broke my heart. Why would they do this, Mom? What did I do wrong? I took her hands in mine. You did absolutely nothing wrong. This isn't about you. It's about them and their twisted idea of what's acceptable. What they did was cruel, dangerous, and potentially illegal. Illegal? Her eyes widened. Yes, abandoning a minor without identification in a foreign country with travel warnings could be considered child endangerment. I've already reported it to the embassy. She fell silent, processing this information. They're going to be so mad. Let them be, I said firmly. Their feelings are not our priority right now. Your safety and well-being are all that matter to me. We spent the afternoon in our room, ordering room service and watching movies, creating a bubble of safety. I used the time to make calls and send emails, putting plans in motion that my family wouldn't see coming. Around 6 p.m., my phone rang. Thomas again. We're heading back to the resort, he announced, as if nothing unusual had happened. Dad wants to know if you rejoining us for dinner or if you still sulking. We'll meet you in the lobby at 8, I replied evenly. We have some things to discuss. Oh, come on, Amber. It was just a joke that got a little out of hand. Kyle and Jenna feel bad about it. 8 o'clock, lobby. I repeated and hung up. When I turned to Haley, she looked anxious. What's going to happen? We're going to have a family meeting, I told her. But first, I want you to know that whatever happens, whatever they say, I have your back. Always. And you have choices here. You don't have to forgive them just because they're family. She considered this, then asked, What would you do? I'm not going to tell you what to feel, I said carefully. But I will tell you what I'm doing. I'm setting boundaries. Clear, firm boundaries with consequences. People who would put you in danger don't get unlimited access to your life, family or not. At 7:55, we took the elevator down to the lobby. I suggested Haley dress comfortably but well, a subtle reminder that we weren't the ones who should feel ashamed. The moment they spotted us, a range of emotions crossed their faces. My father's defensive pride, my mother's forced smile, Thomas's impatience, Sandra's performative concern. Only Kyle and Jenna showed genuine discomfort, perhaps finally realizing the gravity of their prank. I wore my favorite business dress, the one I saved for crucial client presentations. Armor of a sort. We're going to have a conversation right here, right now, about what happened today. They arrived as a group, my parents leading, Thomas and Sandra following, Kyle and Jenna trailing behind with uncharacteristically subdued expressions. There you are, my mother began, as if we were the ones who had been missing. Your father's made reservations at the seafood restaurant. We're not going to dinner, I stated calmly. Amber, people are watching, my mother hissed, glancing around the lobby. The hotel staff are particularly attentive after learning that a minor guest was abandoned without identification. The embassy officials were quite concerned too. We didn't think it through, okay? We're sorry. Yes, they are, I agreed. It was just supposed to be a joke. We didn't mean for it to be such a big deal. And it showed me exactly what you think of me. Now let's put this behind us and enjoy our vacation. My father's face darkened. You involved the embassy? For heaven's sake, Amber, talk about overreacting. Haley and I will be keeping to ourselves for the remainder of this trip. You're talking like this is some kind of business negotiation. We'll see you back home where we'll discuss the long-term implications of today's choices. A 16-year-old U.S. citizen was deliberately left without identification in a country with active travel warnings. I interrupted, my voice clinical and detached. That's an objective description of what occurred today. Thomas stepped forward. Look, things got carried away. The kids meant it as a harmless prank. Endangering a minor is not a prank, I cut in. It's a criminal offense. All because Kyle and Jenna thought it would be funny, and the rest of you went along with it. But sometimes it takes seeing someone hurt the person you love most to find your voice. You've shown me exactly how much my daughter's safety and well-being mean to you. I'm adjusting our relationship accordingly. Criminal? Sandra scoffed. She was at a five-star resort, not on the streets. The hotel has agreed not to disclose our new location to anyone, including family members. Real mature. Without identification. Unable to prove she was a legitimate guest. Unable to receive medical care if needed, I countered. There are things I can do, legal, financial, and personal boundaries that can be set. But they'll affect you too, and I want your input. I had calls to make while she slept, her lawyer, our financial advisor, and a therapist I'd found who specialized in family trauma. Each conversation solidified another piece of my plan. We weren't just angry, we were cutting them off. As we ate on our private balcony overlooking the ocean, Haley seemed lighter somehow. Kyle finally spoke up, his voice lacking its usual cockiness. Are you? I asked, turning to him. Or are you sorry there are consequences? Jenna looked at Haley, who had remained silent throughout the exchange. Haley lifted her chin slightly before responding. It wasn't funny. It was scary and humiliating. My mother tried to salvage the situation. We all make mistakes. Family forgives. That's not happening, I informed them. Long-term implications? Thomas repeated incredulously. In a way it is, I replied. You're being ridiculous, my father declared. Patricia, Thomas, let's go to dinner. Amber will calm down eventually. As they turned to leave, I called after them one more thing. I've changed our room for security reasons. Their stunned faces as the implications sank in gave me the first moment of satisfaction in this horrible day. Back in our new room, an upgraded suite the manager had provided at no extra charge, Haley finally relaxed. You were amazing, she said. I've never seen you stand up to them like that. I should have done it years ago, I admitted. What did you mean about long-term implications? She asked. I sat beside her on the couch. That's something we need to discuss. As I outlined my plans, I watched my daughter transform before my eyes from a victim, seeking approval to a young woman recognizing her own worth and the power of boundaries. By the time we went to bed, we had a strategy and, more importantly, a new understanding between us. My phone buzzed with texts throughout the night. From Mom, you're overreacting. Your father is very upset. From Thomas, way to ruin the family vacation. From Sandra, the kids are devastated. You're being so harsh. I didn't respond to any of them. They would discover soon enough that harsh didn't begin to describe what was coming. The next morning, I woke before Haley and slipped out to the balcony with my phone and notebook. A soft knock at our door announced the arrival of room service, a breakfast ID ordered the night before, with all of Haley's favorites. I kept waiting for the guilt to hit me, she confessed, for standing up to them last night. It never came. That's because you did nothing wrong, I assured her. The guilt belongs entirely to them. At 10 on my phone, my mother, right on schedule. I put her on speaker. Amber, this has gone far enough, she began without preamble. Your father and I expect to see you and Haley at the pool in 30 minutes. We need to move past this unpleasantness. We have other plans today, I replied calmly. We paid for this entire vacation, including your portion. Need I remind you? What plans could possibly be more important than family time? She demanded. I'm aware of the financial arrangements, Mom. I've already transferred the full cost of our share to your account this morning. Check your email for confirmation. That's not necessary. Your father and I wanted to treat everyone. There was a startled silence before she responded. I prefer to pay our own way, I said. It eliminates any sense of obligation. Obligation? We're family, not business associates. Family doesn't abandon a 16-year-old without identification in a foreign country, I reminded her. since you seem confused about what family means and clarifying the boundaries. I knew my family would be watching for us in the common areas. Our absence would unsettle them, shift the power dynamic. Financial independence means they can't use money as leverage. Don't let your mother's overreaction come between you and your family. After she hung up, Haley looked at me with newfound respect. You paid them back for the whole trip? I'll decide when and if I am ready to spend time with people who thought that was acceptable. Every penny, I confirmed. And they knew exactly what they were doing. We spent the morning at the resort spa, a luxury I normally consider too extravagant. But today, it served both as self-care and strategy. We didn't think it through. It was supposed to be funny, not scary, Jenna added. We wouldn't have let anything bad happen to you. Kyle noticed us first, nudging Jenna, who whispered to her parents. Soon, all 6 of them were watching as we selected a table on the opposite side of the restaurant. When we finally emerged for lunch at the beachside cafe, we spotted them immediately seated at a large table near the water. It took less than 5 minutes for Thomas to approach us. For the remainder of this trip, we'll address everything else when we're back home. You humiliated me, left me without identification in a foreign country, and laughed about it. That's not what family does. Acting like adults means acknowledging that actions have consequences. You've really involved officials in a family matter. Your actions yesterday endangered my daughter. The consequence is that we'll be keeping our distance for now. You're threatening legal action against your own family over a prank. This is childish, Amber, he said, looming over our table. Mom and Dad got us a family table. We're comfortable here, thanks, I replied, not looking up from my menu. My father, always concerned with appearances and reputation, was the first to shift strategies. What happens next depends largely on your actions going forward. Haley, he tried, switching tactics. Your grandparents really want to spend time with you. Haley surprised us both by responding directly. They've been very supportive. Amber, you've made your point. Now it's time to act like adults and move forward. Always leave room for the other party to make the right choice, even when you've already decided on your course of action. I was abandoned without ID in a foreign country. That's not an overreaction, that's a fact. Thomas's face flushed. Kyle and Jenna feel terrible. They're just kids who made a mistake. They're older than me, Haley pointed out. As if summoned by their names, Kyle and Jenna approached, wearing matching expressions of performative remorse. We really are sorry, Haley, Kyle began, sounding rehearsed. But something bad did happen, Haley replied quietly. We said we're sorry, Kyle muttered, his contrition already giving way to indignation. What else do you want? Space, I interjected. We want space. The tension was interrupted by the arrival of my parents. My father's face was stormy with displeasure. Enough of this nonsense, he declared. I agree completely, I said, surprising him. We did not endanger anyone, my mother insisted. Stop being so melodramatic. The hotel security, resort management, and U.S. Embassy officials all disagree with your assessment, I informed her. Would you like to speak with them? My father's expression shifted slightly, the first hint of doubt creeping in. Child endangerment isn't just a family matter, Dad. It's a legal issue. Legal? Sandra interjected. I'm not threatening anything, I clarified. I'm informing you of steps already taken. The incident has been formally documented. That landed exactly as intended. I could almost see the mental calculations happening behind their eyes. Perhaps we all need some time to cool down, he conceded. We'll respect your wish for space today. As they retreated, Haley exhaled shakily. That was intense. It was, I agreed. But you handled it beautifully. What did you mean about what happens next depends on their actions? I smiled slightly. That is negotiation 101. Throughout the day, We continued our strategic visibility, appearing in common areas just long enough to be seen before moving elsewhere, never giving my family the opportunity to corner us for prolonged conversations. Each brief encounter reinforced our new boundaries. That evening, as we dressed for dinner, Haley asked a question that caught me off guard. Are we ever going to forgive them? I paused, considering carefully. Forgiveness is personal, Haley. It doesn't mean forgetting or allowing the same harmful patterns to continue. For me, I might eventually forgive them. But our relationship will never be the same, and that's not a bad thing. What about you? What are you thinking? She twisted her hair thoughtfully. I think I need them to really understand what they did wrong first. Real apologies come with changed behavior, not just words. Not just say sorry because they're supposed to. That's very wise, I told her. As we headed to the restaurant, we passed Thomas and Sandra in the lobby. Sandra stepped forward hesitantly. We've been talking, she said, glancing at Thomas. The kids want to apologize properly. Maybe tomorrow, if you're willing. Your mother is upset. Time to act like family again? We'll think about it, I replied, neither accepting nor rejecting the olive branch. One by one, the pieces of my response were falling into order. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. In our room that night, I received an email from my lawyer confirming everything was in place for our return. Whatever point you're making, it's gone far enough. I showed it to Haley. Notice how there's no acknowledgement of wrongdoing? Just pressure to sweep it under the rug. She nodded. Haley and I had maintained our strategic distance, accepting only one brief, supervised apology session with Kyle and Jenna, which had gone about as well as expected, rehearsed words with little understanding of the seriousness of their actions. That's how it always works with them, isn't it? We're supposed to pretend everything's fine. Not anymore, I promised her. That pattern stops now. I sent a single reply to my father. Family doesn't endanger family. We'll talk when we get home. Then I turned off my phone for the night. Another small act of independence that felt surprisingly powerful. 3 days later, our vacation was mercifully approaching its end. We'll be on the same flight to the international hub, but Haley and I have been upgraded to first class. The night before our departure, I received a call from the front desk. Ms. Wilson, we've processed the changes to your travel arrangements as requested. Your upgraded tickets are ready for collection. Thank you, I replied, knowing my family would soon discover this latest development. Early the next morning, we met the rest of the family in the lobby for our airport transfer. My mother immediately noticed our separate luggage pile. Why aren't your bags with ours? She asked suspiciously. We've made some changes to our travel arrangements, I explained. While my family joined the regular check-in queue, Haley and I were directed to the premium counter, where the agent greeted us warmly. Would you like to access the lounge before boarding? First class, Thomas repeated. That's a waste of money just to avoid sitting with us. It's my money to waste, I replied simply. The division was created when you participated in abandoning my daughter. I'm simply responding to it. And as for how long, that depends on what happens when we get home. My father frowned. This separation nonsense has gone on long enough, Amber. We're flying home as a family. We're flying home on the same plane, I corrected him. In different cabins. As we walked toward the gate, I could feel 6 pairs of eyes boring into my back. How long are you going to punish everyone for one mistake? Once we were settled in our spacious seats, Haley finally relaxed enough to ask about my cryptic comment to Thomas. At the airport, the separation became even more pronounced. I filed formal reports about the abandonment incident with both U.S. and foreign authorities. Ms. Wilson, we have your first-class boarding passes ready. Yes, please, I replied, aware of my family watching this exchange with growing frustration. Thomas broke away from the group to approach us. You know, the college funds I've been managing for Kyle and Jenna. This is ridiculous. You're deliberately creating divisions in the family. No, Thomas. It was a momentary lapse in judgment, he insisted. This isn't punishment, I clarified. It's protection. What's that supposed to mean? He demanded. I looked him directly in the eyes. It means I've spent the past week making arrangements that will surprise you. Before he could respond, our premium boarding was announced. The luxury of first class was a welcome respite after the tension of the past week. What kind of arrangements have you made? Several kinds, I explained. Legal ones for starters. Her eyes widened. Are they going to be arrested or something? No, nothing that dramatic. But there's an official record now, which matters for what comes next. Which is? Financial arrangements, I continued. Haley nodded. Years ago, when both families were still close, I had used my finance background to set up and manage education funds for all 3 children, growing them through careful investments. I've restructured them, I explained. The money is still there for their education, but I'm no longer in control of it. An independent trustee will manage the funds with strict disbursement conditions. My name is being removed from the property entirely. They're going to be furious, Haley predicted. I had contributed nearly 1/3 of the cost, despite using it less frequently than the others. Probably, I agreed. But it's actually in the kids' best interest this way. The money can only be used for education, not whatever impulse purchase Thomas and Sandra might approve. By the time we approached the international hub for our connection, Haley had a complete understanding of the new boundaries being established. What else? She asked, sensing there was more. I've withdrawn my portion of the investment in the family vacation home, I told her. This was perhaps the most significant move. Years ago, the whole family had pooled resources to purchase a lakeside cabin. That's a lot of money, Haley observed. It is, I confirmed. Money that will now go toward our future instead, including your college fund. First, I filed official reports about Haley's abandonment with the relevant authorities. The first-class meal service interrupted our conversation, but as the flight progressed, I shared more details of my comprehensive response plan. The money is still available for legitimate educational expenses, but it will be managed by an independent trustee, not me. But understanding isn't required for boundaries to work. They just need to be respected. Do you think they'll ever understand why you're doing all this? She asked. Some of them might eventually, I answered honestly. I've simply transferred that power to a neutral third party for everyone's protection. As we disembarked, we found my family waiting at the gate, clearly having rushed from their own arrival to intercept us. We need to talk before the next flight, my father announced. I agree, I said, surprising him. Let's find somewhere private. In a quiet corner of the airport lounge, access courtesy of our first-class tickets, I faced my family and decided it was time for complete transparency. I've made some decisions you need to be aware of, I began without preamble. The vacation home had been a symbol of family unity, our one shared asset. You did what? My father exploded. That's outrageous. Second, I continued calmly, I've restructured Kyle and Jenna's education funds. Thomas's face flushed with anger. You have no right to make unilateral decisions about my children's money. Actually, I do. The accounts were established with me as the trustee with full discretionary power. Protection from what? Sandra demanded. From poor decisions, I replied evenly. Like the decision to abandon a minor without identification in a foreign country. Because this stopped being just family business when you endangered my child. My mother, who had remained uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke. It showed me exactly where I stand with all of you. As we walked toward our gate, my father called after me. And now I'm standing somewhere else, somewhere safer. Amber, whatever point you're trying to make, this isn't about making a point, I interrupted. It's about establishing consequences and boundaries. Which brings me to the third change. I've withdrawn my investment in the lake house and removed my name from the property. This announcement landed like a bombshell. You can't just pull out, my father sputtered. We all agreed. Check the agreement, I suggested. There's a clause allowing any party to exit with proper notice. My lawyer has already sent the formal documentation. Lawyer? Thomas repeated incredulously. You've involved lawyers in family business? Yes, I confirmed. Kyle, who had been unusually subdued, suddenly addressed Haley directly. Are you really okay with your mom destroying the family over one stupid mistake? Haley met his gaze steadily. She's not destroying anything. She's showing me what it looks like when someone actually protects you instead of throwing you under the bus for a laugh. It was just a joke that went too far. Jenna insisted, why can't you get over it? Because it revealed something important, Haley replied. Our connection flight was announced, cutting the confrontation short. This isn't over, Amber. I turned back briefly. You're right. It's just beginning. On the final flight home, in the quiet comfort of first class, Haley leaned against my shoulder. I'm proud of you, Mom, she whispered. I don't think I've ever seen you stand up to them like this. I should have done it long ago, I admitted. But sometimes the strongest boundaries come from protecting someone else, not just yourself. When we landed, we were surprised to find my friend Jessica waiting for us at the terminal, exactly as I'd arranged during our hotel stay. Your chariot awaits, she announced, taking one of our bags. Thomas and Sandra, emerging from the jetway behind us, looked confused. Aren't you riding with us? Sandra asked. Dad reserved a van for everyone. We have our own transportation, I informed them. We'll see you when we're ready. As we walked away with Jessica, I could feel the weight of their stares. But for the first time in my adult life, I felt completely unburdened by their expectations or disapproval. Their power over me, over us, was broken. In Jessica's car, Haley finally relaxed completely. Recover from the trip and prepare for the family meeting I've scheduled for next weekend. They'll come because they're still convinced they can talk us back into the old dynamic. They don't realize yet that we've permanently changed the rules of engagement. What happens now? She asked. Now, I told her, we go home. They'll come? She asked doubtfully. Oh, they'll come, I assured her. Jessica glanced at me in the rearview mirror. I opened the door to find them clustered on my porch, my parents in front, Thomas and Sandra behind them, Kyle and Jenna trailing reluctantly at the rear. Sounds like I missed one hell of a vacation story. I'd arranged the furniture deliberately, separate chairs rather than cozy couches, positioned to give Haley and me psychological advantage. On the coffee table sat a folder containing documents, a visual reminder of how thoroughly I'd prepared. You have no idea, I replied, squeezing Haley's hand. But the ending is still being written. 1 week after our return, I stood in my living room making final preparations for the family meeting. Are you nervous? Haley asked, arranging a platter of store-bought cookies, deliberately impersonal, unlike my usual homemade offerings for family gatherings. What happened on our vacation was a turning point, not just in how Haley and I view our family relationships, but in how those relationships will function moving forward. Not nervous, I reflected, resolved. The doorbell rang precisely at 2 o'clock. My family had always been punctual, if nothing else. Thank you for coming, I said formally, stepping aside to let them enter. My mother attempted to hug me, but I subtly shifted to make it a brief shoulder touch instead. Amber, darling, this has all been so unnecessary, she murmured. It details how Haley was deliberately left without identification in a country with active travel warnings. We'll get to that, I replied, directing them to the arranged seating. Once everyone was settled, an uncomfortable silence fell. My father, always impatient with emotional tension, broke it first. However, I've chosen not to pursue criminal charges at this time. All right, Amber, we're here as requested. Though I must say all this formality seems excessive for a family discussion. I appreciate you coming, I began, my voice calm and measured. For my parents, you'll find formal notice of my withdrawal from the lake house property, along with conditions for future contact with Haley and me. If this is about more apologies, Thomas started. The privilege of unfettered access to our lives has been revoked. I raised my hand, cutting him off. This isn't about apologies, it's about consequences and boundaries. Opening the folder, I removed a printed document. This is the official report filed with the U.S. Embassy regarding the abandonment incident. You're making it sound criminal, Sandra protested, which I think we can all agree is healthier, given recent events. Because it potentially is, I replied evenly. Child endangerment is a serious offense. How generous, Thomas muttered sarcastically. Instead, I continued, ignoring him, I've established a series of boundaries that will govern our relationship moving forward. I handed each adult a sealed envelope. These contain individualized documents relevant to each of you. My father's face darkened as he scanned the paper. Scheduled visits, prior notice required. This is absurd, we're your parents. Parents who participated in endangering my child, I reminded him. Turning to Thomas and Sandra, I continued. Your envelopes contain documentation of the restructured education funds for Kyle and Jenna, along with similar contact parameters. Sandra opened her envelope with trembling fingers. You've appointed a bank as trustee. We have to submit formal requests for withdrawals. The funds remain fully available for legitimate educational expenses, I clarified, just without my direct involvement. This is punishment, plain and simple, Thomas accused. No, I corrected him. Punishment would be withdrawing the money entirely, which I had every legal right to do. This is a boundary, protecting the fund. As intended purpose while removing myself from decisions that could become contentious. Kyle and Jenna exchanged worried glances, finally seeming to grasp the real-world implications of their prank. As for Kyle and Jenna, I continued, they'll find letters outlining my expectations for any future interaction with Haley, direct apologies, real ones that demonstrate understanding of the harm. Cost will be the minimum starting point. What you all did showed me exactly how little you value me or Mom. This is insane, my father declared, standing abruptly. This whole situation has been blown completely out of proportion. You're acting like we're criminals who need rehabilitation, not your family. Family doesn't abandon family, Haley spoke up, her voice steady despite her obvious nervousness. That's not true, sweetheart, my mother protested. We love you both. Minimizing what happened doesn't help your case, I pointed out. It only confirms that these boundaries are necessary. Through it all, I maintained calm firmness, neither raising my voice nor backing down. So what now? Thomas demanded. We just submit to your dictatorial terms if we want to see Haley. They're boundaries I've established for our well-being. You can choose to respect them or not. I didn't realize how dangerous it was to leave you without ID. I'm not ready to just go back to normal, but it's a start. That choice will determine the nature of our relationship moving forward. These aren't terms for a negotiation, I clarified. My boundaries remained firmly in place, but most of them had at least verbally agreed to respect them, however reluctantly. What we did was stupid and mean. I didn't think about how scary it would be for you. My parents initially tested the boundaries, showing up unannounced once, and calling Haley directly instead of going through me as required. Each violation was met with a calm, consistent response, a 1-week extension of the waiting period before the next visit. Or a lack thereof, my father added bitterly, perhaps because they were young enough to still be learning about consequences, or perhaps because they truly felt remorse. They made genuine efforts to rebuild their relationship with Haley. They began with written apologies, followed by supervised visits that gradually grew more relaxed as trust slowly rebuilt. If that's your choice, I acknowledged. For the next hour, the conversation cycled through predictable stages: anger, bargaining, guilt tripping, and finally, the first tentative signs of acceptance. These attempts backfired spectacularly when Haley recorded one such conversation and played it for me, leading to another family meeting and tighter restrictions. It was Kyle who eventually broke the family's united front. "I really am sorry, Haley," he said, looking directly at his cousin for perhaps the first time. Jenna, following her brother's lead, added, "We thought it would just be embarrassing, not frightening. Now I understand it should be about mutual respect." Haley studied them both before responding, "Thank you for saying that." The tension was palpable but manageable. The conversation careful but not entirely forced. By the time the family left, 3 hours later, we had reached an uneasy truce. As I closed the door behind them, Haley exhaled deeply. "That was intense." "It was," I agreed. "And it's just the beginning of a long process." Over the following months, our family dynamics underwent a slow, sometimes painful transformation. Gradually, they began to comply, not necessarily because they agreed with the boundaries, but because they recognized I was serious about enforcing them. Thomas and Sandra took longer to adjust, fluctuating between resentful compliance and attempts to convince Haley I was being unreasonable. Kyle and Jenna, surprisingly, adapted most quickly. 3 months after the ill-fated vacation, we held our first family gathering under the new dynamic, a Sunday lunch at a neutral restaurant. After lunch, as we walked to our cars, my mother pulled me aside. "I still think you overreacted," she said, "but I'm beginning to understand why you felt you needed to take such drastic measures." Coming from her, this was monumental. "Thank you for saying that," I replied sincerely. "Will things ever go back to how they were?" she asked. "No," I told her honestly. "But they might become something better, healthier for everyone, especially Haley." That evening, as Haley and I sat on our porch swing, she reflected on the changes of the past months. "I used to think family meant putting up with whatever they dish out," she said. "That's an important lesson," I agreed. "One I wish I'd learned it and taught you sooner." "Better late than never," she smiled, leaning against my shoulder. The healing process was far from complete. Trust, once broken, rebuilt slowly. But watching my daughter grow in confidence and self-respect made every difficult conversation, every uncomfortable confrontation, worthwhile. Our story isn't about a family destroyed by one terrible decision, but about a family forced to evolve beyond toxic patterns into something healthier. Not all family bonds survive the transformation intact, but those that did were stronger, built on respect rather than obligation or fear. True family doesn't endanger you for amusement or abandon you for convenience. True family lifts you up, respects your boundaries, and helps you become your best self. And share it with someone who might need to hear that establishing boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for healthy relationships. If there's one thing I've learned through this journey, it's that protecting those we love sometimes means drawing hard lines, even against other people we love. So I ask you, my viewers, and remember, have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family members? How did you handle it, and what was the outcome? Share your experiences in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Sometimes the family we need isn't the one we reborn into, but the one we create through love and respect and healthy boundaries.